Hey, this is Tom Webster, and this is Sounds Profitable for Thursday, December 14th, 2023. 10 critical facts about video and podcasting for success in 2024. Sound You Can See, our latest research on the role of video in podcasting, presents a compelling picture of a single audience choosing audio or video depending on their mood and environment. In a moment, I'm going to break down the 10 things you need to know from this important study. But first, this week on the Product Deep Dive, Fatima Zaidi gives a tour of co-host's Prefix Pixel and what it can do, including B2B analytics and advanced audience insights. Catch the full 28-minute walkthrough now at soundsprofitable.com. Yesterday, Sounds Profitable released Sound You Can See, Podcasting's Video Dilemma, one of our most important releases of the year. We called it a dilemma because, well, that's exactly what many audio podcasters have been confronted with in the wake of the rising popularity of podcasts that are also available on video. And to be clear, we're mainly talking about YouTube here. Indeed, the overwhelming majority of the top 20 podcasts on any available ranker are also available on YouTube. And it's time we understood that that's no accident. The narrative of this research is clear and compelling, and I highly recommend that you watch the entire webinar. We'll have a link in the show notes. If you're a creator trying to improve your craft or someone on the monetization side looking for revenue, and many of you are both, surely it's worth less than an hour of your time to give some deep thought to this issue and watch the complete presentation. But to summarize the main findings, here are the 10 stats and facts from this report that I think will help you the most in 2024 and beyond. Number one, the video podcast consumer and the audio podcast consumer are the same people. We need to stop thinking of video consumers as different to our audio audience. In fact, they're the same humans, consuming either form depending on their context, mood, and environment. In our survey of over 1,100 adults 18 plus who had watched a video podcast in the last 30 days, fully 86% had also listened to an audio podcast in that same period of time. When asked to estimate how much of their total podcast consumption time was spent with video, this same group indicated that less than half, about 47%, was spent with video. So they are primarily audio consumers. Number two, video podcast consumers are most likely to watch podcasts on YouTube, but to listen to them on Spotify. 63% of video consumers say that YouTube is what they use most often, while another 14% name one of several social media platforms that, let's face it, generally embed YouTube videos anyway for sharing. However, for audio podcasts, Spotify captures the plurality of video consumers' ears, with 42% indicating the platform compared to 20% for Apple Podcasts, and this despite the fact that far more video consumers use iPhones for podcast consumption than Android phones, computers, or smart speakers. Number three, the video consumer is from a different, newer generation of the podcast audience. Why are YouTube and Spotify so popular with video podcast consumers? Well, for most, those are the two platforms that introduced this audience to podcasting to begin with. 83% of this cohort of podcast consumers have been listening to podcasts for 5 years or less. In other words, they came into the medium in a vastly different landscape than the Apple-dominated universe of 10 to 15 years ago. When asked which platform they first discovered podcasting on, 41% said YouTube, while 18% named Spotify. Apple Podcasts, which many of us from the first generation of podcast consumers used, or iTunes or some version of from the Apple universe, was third here with this cohort at 15%. Number four, video podcast consumers are not confusing YouTube shows for podcasts. They know what they're watching. When asked how video consumers know that a given video is a podcast and not just another YouTube video, 54% say it's, well, because the word podcast is in the title of the show, and I'm inclined to believe them. Another 51% noted that their determination is based on seeing either microphones or a studio or both in the video, which sets a podcast video apart from the typical video consumed on YouTube. About half reported that the host or creator of the show is known for podcasting, while 30% indicated that the show is also available on audio-only podcast platforms, which further reinforces our first point that these are the same humans who listen to audio podcasts, and they're fully aware of the differences. Number 5, the audience for video podcasts are very similar to the overall audience for the genre of podcasts they consume. A comparison of the top genres overall for the video podcast consumer tracks very closely to a listing of the top genres overall. The top 5, which includes their preferences for audio and video, comprises comedy, sports, news, music, and true crime, which, with one exception, tracks with the leading genre rankers in the industry. The exception here is music, which continues to be a great opportunity for podcasting if sensible licensing and royalty agreements can be worked out. Here's where platforms like YouTube and Spotify currently have an advantage over some other platforms because they have the infrastructure in place to monitor for licensed music and compensate rights holders accordingly. Number 6, while the video audience listen to all genres, they have preferred formats for what they watch on video. More important than the genre of a podcast is the format. 79% of this audience say that they watch conversations or interview podcasts on video, significantly higher than the next format, creator or host monologues. And when asked which they prefer to watch on video, conversations between hosts and interviews, and again, host or creator monologues, perform significantly better than most forms of scripted narrative, such as drama, fiction, or podcast trailers. Now, this is good news for creators. The easiest things to translate to video, people talking into microphones, are exactly what people prefer to see from video podcasts. Number 7, why do consumers choose video over audio when they do so? Focus, context, and setting. When asked where they consume video podcasts and audio podcasts, the former choice is overwhelmingly confined to the home and to private viewing. Audio podcasts, even of the same shows that people might otherwise watch, are favored in settings outside the home, with the vehicle being the top location for a preferred location at 19%. The mode for watching video podcasting is not a low attention mode. In fact, it's a lean forward choice for when these consumers want to follow a conversation better. The audio option is favored when this audience cohort can't focus on a screen or is otherwise engaged in multitasking. And the option to have both audio and video versions of a podcast, then, is not about appealing to different audiences, but giving the same audience multiple options to consume their favorite podcast, depending on the level of attention that they're able to devote. Number 8, YouTube is the dominant choice for consuming video podcasts, and for multiple reasons. As already indicated, many podcast consumers actually discovered the medium on YouTube, so it's natural for them to continue to use the platform in that way. It's also where this audience consumes most of their video, period, so in many cases, they're already there and in a viewing mode. It should also be noted that 64% of YouTube podcast viewers indicated that the video platform was actually a better experience for them than using an audio-only podcast platform. Among the reasons for this are the ease of navigating or skipping through content, captioning, and the engagement that the platform offers, both in terms of user comments and in a feeling of closer engagement with the hosts, which is facilitated by being able to watch them and see their nonverbal communication. Number 9, what don't viewers love about YouTube? Well, the platform's native advertising. YouTube podcast consumers were highly negative about the platform's native ads, typically encountered as pre-rolls and also as interruptions, often mid-sentence in their favorite podcasts. The top 5 terms used to describe these ads were annoying, disruptive, too frequent, irrelevant, and too long. And number 10, those same YouTube viewers are overwhelmingly positive about the ads native to the podcast itself, often presented by the host or other persons associated with the show. This was especially true with YouTube Premium consumers, which is about a quarter of the YouTube podcasting audience, who actually pay a monthly fee specifically to avoid ads, to stop the platform from interrupting their content. These same consumers were incredibly positive about the native ads in their favorite podcasts, with 87% saying they like or don't mind them compared to only 6% who dislike them. The top 3 attributes that these viewers used to describe native podcast ads were informative, interesting, and relevant. Well, all of these facts taken together present a compelling picture of a complex and robust audience for video podcasts. These aren't video-only or even video-dominant podcast consumers. They choose audio or video when they have the option, and having both available simply offers more touchpoints, relevance, and engagement with an audience that pays attention and wants to take our content with them wherever they go. If you can film your hosts' conversations, you've got a video podcast. And if you're a video creator with a show primarily featuring conversations, monologues, or unscripted content, you've got an audio option easily available. Ultimately, the audience is in control, and our best bet is to give them choice and control. You can watch the full presentation and download the entire deck at the link in the show notes. This episode is hosted on Art19. I'm Tom Webster. Thanks again for listening to this podcast, 10 Critical Facts about Video and Podcasting for Success in 2024. I'll be back next year. Cheers.